All right, welcome everybody. Have you ever wanted to be a fly on the wall as two investors has a conversation just about running short-term rentals, about marketing, about buying out of state? Well, today we are doing just that. I'm interviewing John Hildebrand, and John is a Airbnb SuperHost ambassador with the company, and he also coaches Airbnb. He has 7 properties.
with the
Get
company.
this. His last three, or his 3 current properties, are expected to do $250,000 in gross revenue this year. So if you want to know how he's doing that and how he's helping others do that as well, you don't want to miss this show. Welcome to the Cash Flow Happy Hour podcast. I'm your host, Josh Baldovino, and on this show, you can join us live as we interview investors and share how they are increasing their cash flow. So grab a drink and let's get into it. John, man, welcome to the show. Super excited you're here.
Dude, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm super stoked. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I'm ready.
I love it. Well, just so the viewer has some context, John, what's the quick origin story? How did you get into real estate?
Yeah, quick story is, again, my name's John Hildebrand. I'm based in Scottsdale, Arizona. My real estate journey started when I was a kid. We moved 22 times as a kid growing up. So you're kind of forced into like understanding real estate and the importance of looking and buying and whatnot. And then I started buying my first real estate when I went to college. I went to Santa Barbara for a photography school, and I bought a condo and was renting it. And that's got me kind of hooked because when I sold it, it paid for my college, all my tuition, everything. So I was debt free when I graduated college, which was super cool. And then, me and my brother bought another place in Malibu. And then a couple of years later, we bought a short-term rental property together in LA. And that's kind of been my journey. And then from there, the last 2 years, it's been 100% short-term rental, full-time, full speed, basically.
Wow, that is a great intro to real estate.
That's the very quick story of just like, but yeah, that's the journey, basically.
I love it. And then in terms of your portfolio mix up right now, what does that look like?
So the portfolio is pretty much 100% short-term rental space. I ended up selling 2 of them. The market was just so great, I guess. Never thought I was going to sell them, but the offers just kept coming in without even marketing it. So we ended up selling them. And then right now I currently have 7 listings live, and I have a new build, which I'm super excited about. It's our first new build that we're building it just for Airbnb in mind. That will be ready in July. So that will put us at what, 8? Yeah, 8.
Sweet. Well, if you're joining us live, I appreciate it. Definitely say hi in the comments. Let us know where you're tuning in from, because I love to see that. And it's fun. I can bring you guys on screen. Also, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, again, thank you to our live viewers. You can drop them in the chat. And towards the end, we'll go ahead and have a Q&A where we answer all those questions as well. But just so you have some context about John, let me share my screen. And boom, boom, boom. Okay, so this is your profile. If you want to follow him on Instagram, please give him a follow. Get you to 50K followers real fast or something like that. One thing that I think John does really great is his direct booking site is awesome. So before we get into, if you want to see all of his current portfolio and the listings that he has live, I guess you were in Scottsdale, Malibu, and Chandler, Arizona. Why these markets, by the way?
So I was in Malibu for like the last 18 years. And I had a place. That's kind of how I started short-term rentals a little bit. When I was living in Malibu, I was a traveling photographer, bouncing all over the place. And obviously the house was expensive. So I turned to Airbnb, 2016. And probably like a lot of other people, I was so scared. I was like, you want me to open my personal house on an app and have a bunch of random strangers rent my house? Like, no thanks. That just sounds like the scariest thing on earth. But I kind of didn't have a choice. So yeah, we started renting it, and that's kind of like why I chose Malibu, right? And it just made sense at the time. And then I which we'll talk about later, I'm sure, but I liked being local. So when I ended up investing in my first place, 100% Airbnb was in Los Angeles, and it was right next to the football stadium.
Mm-hmm.
That if we bought it in time, hopefully we can get enough rent, get it through the football stadium, and then get more and more rent. So that's kind of how I just kind of stumbled upon my my step. But then when I came to Arizona, this is where I was born. All my family's from here. I have a ton of connections with construction and cleaners and handyman. Just like it was just a nice play, and the short-term rental policy at the time was really, really proactive, and they supported all the laws, and real estate was relatively cheap compared to California. So
Yeah.
I moved back here and I just kind of went for it.
Gotcha. I like it. And if we're looking at the portfolio again, let me just share the screen. Let's pick one of these listings just to kind of deep dive a little bit. One, do all of your properties have a pool?
Yeah, that's funny. Pretty much.
I mean,
So
and these are beautiful pools. So are you redoing these pools yourself, or what's the story behind that?
that's funny you said that, because the Malibu one is currently on hold, because I don't know if anybody here is familiar with Malibu, but there's insane amounts of fires, and then there's insane amounts of mudslides. So we had a major foundation crack. So our pool is basically broken half. And
Oh no.
unfortunately, we have to redo the entire deck and the entire pool. So the fact you just said that is kind of wild. And it is, this pool is over the top. It has one of those jets, so you can swim laps but not move. You're not like hitting the wall. But
God.
yeah, it's a super bummer, man.
I mean, this place is unreal. I know that we wanted to dive into another listing first, but you talked to Malibu, so now I pulled it up. So that's I'm gonna blame this one on you.
Yeah.
Okay, these beds. Like, what was it like when you designed this? When you thought of this, like, what is this about?
Just I think so many people, not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but so many people don't think about an experience and or design when building out any real estate or a house, especially Airbnb. Malibu's market is insanely competitive. People go over the top. So we were trying to find any ways to just have a conversation. And I'm telling you, every time I post these beds, people go nuts. It's like everybody wants to have an Instagram. They're like, wait a minute, is the beds floating? So the concept was to make it look like the beds were floating and the rope was holding up the beds. It's just a great conversation piece, and it looks cool.
No, I mean it's beautiful. Kitchen is, I mean white and black obviously is super trendy right now, and I can't tell if it's, what's interesting and what I love about this property, and this is the first time I'm seeing the listing actually, by the way, is that a lot of people, the house will either be a normal house that they'll rent out, or they'll create one Instagrammable moment.
Yep.
There's everything is beautiful in this listing. I mean, God, like, look at this backyard, man. So, okay. We're going to dive into the numbers, because now I want to know the numbers on this. But before we get into the juicy stuff, I know you wanted to share something that was maybe a little more approachable first before we dived into some of the juicy.
True.
All right, so we're navigating the website, and again, if you're not watching this on YouTube and you're watching this on a podcast platform, then I guess this is where you should pause, go onto YouTube and watch this on YouTube so you can see all the fun things that I'm digging into. But you have a couple properties here, and you said the Beverly.
Yeah, I think the Beverly has a really great story, and I feel it's really relatable. This is where my journey became like real, because I bought, so real quick, like 2.5, 3 years ago, right? I moved back to Arizona, and I was like, I need a place to live. Had no idea what I was doing. I sold my other business. I was like bouncing around, snowboarding all over the place. And I was like, okay, what am I going to do the rest of my life? So I bought this house, and I was like, I'm just going to rent it part-time and travel. So the stories of the house, we bought it. You want me to dive into all the numbers and stuff?
Right? Yeah. Okay. Go real fast.
Yeah, I'll go fast.
What'd you buy it for?
I like buying, my thing is I like buying the ugliest house on the block. So this place was by far the ugliest in the entire neighborhood. It was really bad. just, I can't, it was so disgusting inside. I barely even walked through it. I was just like, this is perfect. I want it. So we bought it for 350,000.
Okay.
And it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, has a pool, built-in jacuzzi, a garage, but literally we had to strip everything all the way down to the 2x4s, all the electrical, all the AC. We had to put in all new pool equipment, all new appliances. So we spent, with furniture, smart devices to get it ready for Airbnb, we spent about 150,000 to
That's
get
rehab
it.
plus furnishing.
Yep, plus furnishing.
Okay. What did it price for afterwards?
So unfortunately, the market didn't move. Like, it was horrible still. So, and I was by far at that point the nicest house in the entire market. So looking back, maybe I should have waited a year, but you just don't know. So when I got it appraised, it only appraised for like 420 or something like that. It was way, way, way underpriced, but there was no comps. There was nothing to go off. Even the appraiser told me, he's like, these numbers aren't going to make sense. This place is so much nicer than anything here. This is the highest I'm going to get you. But now if you look on Zillow, I think it's like 680.
Nice.
I could sell it in 2 minutes, really.
How'd you finance this deal?
That one I did cash. I had cash. I needed to spend it because I sold my house in Malibu and I didn't want to pay the taxes, so I had to move kind of quick. So I ended up paying all cash. The remodel, a lot of it was on credit cards and whatnot. And I knew I would just pay it off later, which we did right away.
And so right now, if your average nightly rate's 340, what's the occupancy?
So this place is where I got hooked, right? This is where I was like, okay, because I was going to do this part-time.
Yeah.
That was going to be like my part-time rental. So rented it a handful of times, was doing great, getting great feedback. And then Airbnb reached out to me.
What year was this again?
About 2.5 years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah. What is that? 19. Yeah. And they were doing a big push on Airbnb Plus in Scottsdale. Oh, I actually see somebody on here from Scottsdale. What's up? They did a big push in Scottsdale to do the Plus listing. And they asked me, I had no idea what it was, but to me, it sounded like the coolest thing ever. And I was like, I want to be a Plus listing. How do I do this? So we started the journey of being a Plus listing. I ended up shooting the entire place myself because of COVID and then the lockdown. And I was basically the last house to get into the whole entire Airbnb Plus system before that whole entire department got let go, which was kind of gnarly going through.
Yeah.
Once it became a Plus and COVID hit, I kind of just like bounced around. I lived in my parents' casita for a while. I was just like snowboarding, and it just was like, I'm just going to rent this thing as much as I can. Well, it took off. It was like 90%, 100% booked.
Jeez.
All the time. And
wow. So how much is, if you had to guess last year, what did you make on that house? Gross. Let's just go gross.
So I was, if you want me to say, so during AirDNA numbers, right? The highest I saw on there was 340 a night. That was the highest. So it was like 68% occupancy. So it was like all my numbers were based off that. I average at bare minimum 85% because we have, summertime in Scottsdale was really, really slow, like definitely slow. So it averages out to about 85%. I was hoping to do like 65K. And be happy. This year, we absolutely destroyed my record that I never thought could be possible. We got to 137,000 on property.
Dude, that's amazing.
It was crazy. And I say that not to brag or anything about the numbers. It just, for me, it was like everything was so new, and I was basing all my numbers off AirDNA, right? And I was happy with those numbers. So I was always trying to improve anyways. And like once I started understanding systems and putting in like pricing tools, and it just kept improving, and we would add, a pool heater and this and that. And and the reviews just kept coming and people enjoyed it. And I'm beyond blown away. This is like my baby house now at this point, because the stories is cool.
I get it. No, I mean, congratulations, one, on the success of it. And for anyone that's listening to this, whether you're listening live, thank you, or in the post play, the reason why I ask questions about numbers and that I post about numbers myself on my own social channels is just to let people know that it's real and it's tangible and it's possible. Not because I'm saying, oh man, look at all this. And again, I said gross because I'm sure there's a lot of expenses, right? And those things vary a lot. And that's another post for another, time down the road. But I post the numbers just so you can say, like normal people, maybe John's a little more than normal, but I'll say myself I'm normal, and those are real numbers. So I'll keep asking it just because it hopefully gives somebody value.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you said that because nobody sees all the other numbers, right? Like I spent all my life savings and maxed out my credit cards to make it work. I just believed in it would work. I'm still paying off some of it, 150,000 to come up to, my budget was 50 grand to remodel the house. And when I got the contractor over, he looked at me like 50 grand. There's no way you can do this for 50 grand. I was like,
yeah.
Uh-oh. And by then it's too late. It's like you bought the house. It's like, okay, here we go.
Yeah. No, it's people a lot of times, and if you don't see everyone's post, you don't follow the entire story, you may just glance over it. Like yesterday I posted our Branson, Missouri one, 48 hours, had 15K on the books. But like to get to that point was how many millions of steps, how many years of other sacrificing something else to be able to do that to that point. So, and it's also not what we're taking home. And that's a future video. Okay. So we have a quick question here. We got one. Any issues if any HOA?
Oh man, I love this question.
Go for it.
So my number one thing is don't buy in HOAs 90% of the time. There is a massive lawsuit going on here in Arizona, and it's actually pretty amazing watching the process, but HOAs are a very slippery slope. Luckily, this house is not in an HOA. A couple of my neighbors are real estate agents. I'm a good neighbor, so it's not an issue. But the HOAs will just change on the dot, and you can lose everything overnight. And I've seen it happen so many times to so many people out here in Arizona. So, yeah, man, HOAs are beyond scary for me.
Yeah, I would add to that as well as, one, be transparent with everybody, your lender, if you have a property manager, obviously, but the HOA, the COA, whoever you're dealing with, and let them know upfront what you're doing, because you'd rather just get shut down from the get-go before you have, significant money in, than if you're converting your own house and now buying $10,000-$20,000 in furniture and or buying an entire house. Like you do that for permitting, HOAs, like whatever you think could shut you down, try and get it shut down beforehand.
That's such a good point, man. Because even sometimes for me, right, I get kind of scared to tell people I'm an Airbnb host sometimes, especially my neighbors, because, the 1%, they're like, oh gosh, this guy's going to have parties. I went and told my neighbors the second I was signing the contract, and they were like, they were so scared at first. And I'm like, you just break it all down. Here's my number. We're putting all these systems into place. We don't allow and knock on wood, it's been fine. I've never had any issues whatsoever. But at least they knew, and it wasn't like a surprise. And they're like, "What's going on next door? This is so weird."
Yeah. I took the same approach too. When we got ours in Joshua Tree, the first thing I did when we got there was I met the neighbors. You bring home the pie or whatever it is next door, and you sales game on. Yeah. Right, but also have genuine concern that you're not trying to be a nuisance, that this is not a party house, and that's completely unacceptable. And that you're, and then at that point, I put new privacy fences on the backyard, which hopefully also, increase the look of their own backyard, but upfront, transparent from the get-go, it'll save you a lot of hassle.
Couldn't agree more, man.
Okay, before we dive into that beautiful Malibu listing that I'll tease one more time for the viewers, let me know again if you have any questions for us if we talk Airbnbs. John has a few questions for me after this, just talking about out-of-state investing. John, you mentioned that you're also an Airbnb ambassador. So one, what the heck does that even mean?
So the best way to describe it is the program is called Ask a Superhost or Ask an Ambassador.
Okay.
I was so lucky to be a part of that pilot program. So they picked a handful of us. Not 100% sure why they picked me, to be totally honest, but somehow it happened. So I went with it. And it was a perfect storm because it was during COVID. I was sitting around bored out of my mind during lockdown. But the point of it was there's so many people that are really interested in being a host, right? And there's more and more people like us that are helping educate and teach people, but a lot of people just don't know where to go. They just go to Airbnb and then they start filling certain things out. And then they're like, wait a minute, this is way too scary. This is too confusing. And then they just fall off. So they had a massive fall off rate. And Airbnb was noticing, man, why are we getting so many people join the platform? And then they just never rent.
Yeah.
So they made a program called Ask a Superhost. And basically what that happens is, let's say Amy here has never hosted before ever. She would go on to Airbnb. She would be like, oh, I want to host. And then a thing will pop up, say, hey, do you want to become a host? You can ask a Superhost. My name would pop up because she's in Scottsdale. I'm in Scottsdale, hopefully, if all the systems are working correctly. And then, and then she can ask me. She can start asking me some general questions, right?
Yeah.
And then she can start building out her listing. And then we get connected in the dashboard, just like a guest. And then she could ask me questions. I can look at her listing as she's building it out. I can be like, hey, that's not a good photo. I would recommend getting better photos. I would work on your caption. Here's your price. And then before they go live, I review it one more time, make sure they're good to go. And then they go live and then they get bookings. So the thing is to try to help people better understand what they're getting themselves into and less errors by just trial and error.
And for the selfish question, what did you get out of it?
No, that's not a selfish question. I'm pretty open about it. So it used to be like a referral bounty that Airbnb would pay me for the referrals that come in. It used to be a set referral. I think it was like $5.50 a referral that would come in. So if I could share my own link or Airbnb would share the link to somebody and refer me, right? And to be totally honest, when it first started, there was no money involved. There was no conversations of any money being involved.
Yeah.
But the way I looked at it, it was like, man, if I start doing this with Airbnb, I'm going to have to step up my game. I'm going to learn so much from the source. So to me, it was like, I don't even care if I get paid.
Yeah.
Don't tell them that. I actually do. I actually do enjoy to get paid. But in the beginning, it was such a new concept. They had no idea how to figure this out. And I just wanted to learn. So now the bounties are kind of all over the place, depending on the county, depending on the size. Unfortunately, sometimes I get bounties for like $40. So it just kind of depends, but it all kind of balances out. But it's 100% free for anybody who wants to join the platform. It does not cost a new host anything. So to take advantage of something like that, like I can't even imagine having that when I first started. It'd be like life-changing, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's asking a Superhost. I mean, asking any host, period, whether you're jumping on a video like this. So those in the chat, congratulations to you guys. This is a great way to learn. And then, of course, that follow-up process where you can get deeper. All of those conversations just add up to helping you be a host. Before we get into talking about your luxury listing, you had a few questions for me about out-of-state investing. So lay them on, John.
Yes. So I've been dying to ask you about buying out of state because last time we kind of, riffing, you were like, oh, I bought, where was it? Ohio,
Columbus, Ohio, Branson, Missouri, and Joshua Tree.
And what absolutely blew my mind is you've never been to Ohio and you still have never been, right?
I have never been to a house that I bought except for the Joshua Tree. And I only went to that after I closed.
This is not fake. I'm like, I don't even remotely.
For those who are listening and don't know my background or my portfolio mix, I have 8 long-term rental units, all of them in Columbus, Ohio, a short-term rental in Joshua Tree and Branson, Missouri, and then a midterm/short-term rental operating in Columbus as well. And again, 100% remote. Have never, ever been there, not even for vacation or to visit, not even as a kid. So
can I ask, first of all, what made you pick that territory? I'm so curious.
Okay, so to answer that one real fast, you know, earlier we showed your luxury properties, and a lot of times those, of course, are big goals, and or you have a big bankroll, but you have to take steps to get to that point to even make it tangible. So for me, of course, everyone would love to buy that $2 million Scottsdale, Arizona mansion and make it a luxury Airbnb. For sure, that's what sells on Instagram. But to get to the stepping stones, the most tangible way for me was to buy a long-term rental property that was a fixer-upper that I could afford. And so my wife and I, for 5 years, were making $40,000 a year at the University of Hawaii, making no money. And so we moved back to California after our first kid. I lived with my parents for 3 years, still was not making a lot of money, even in California. So I couldn't afford rent. So I saved up everything I could for 3 years while living with my parents, while married with a kid. And we bought a long-term rental property in Columbus, Ohio. And that was the first stepping stone. I picked that because that was the only place that we could afford.
Wow.
Like the Midwest was just the bucket that we could afford. And
Yep.
so I said, well, if I have to start somewhere, it has to be there. So we did a long-term rental first, 20% down, put a tenant in there. Bought it for $120. The mortgage is $600 a month, and it rents for $1,300. So the cash flow is $500 a month, 100% passive. That's including the property manager. So,
wow, that's freaking cool. Wow, that's cool. And yeah, and so you get to be very hands off. So
for the long term.
Yeah, for the long term. So you can trust. I guess you have to build trust. Trust has got to be just huge.
Trust is huge, but there's also an out-of-state luxury tax that I will call it, my self-imposed luxury tax, meaning you will have to pay extra people to go in there and check the work. Yes, someone's maybe not 100% honest with you for certain things. And I've had my fair share of, squanders with contractors of, hey, you're supposed to do this, this, this. I had someone else check it and that didn't happen. But that could also happen in your local market.
True.
And for me, it looks like you got a construction shirt, so maybe you know a little bit more about construction than I do. But I know nothing.
Yeah.
So I always paid a little bit more to get the double check, just because I had the lack of knowledge anyway. So no matter what, I would basically be paying somebody.
Good point. That makes it seem a little bit less scary to buy anywhere.
You build it into your deal analysis.
Yeah.
So if you have if it's a fixer-upper property, I pay contractors to walk the property, first of all. It's not like, hey, can you bid it? It's, hey, can I pay you to bid it?
Yep.
You will get a lot more better responses if you approach it that way, for anyone that's listening. And then from there, you take those 2 or 3 bids and you add your contingency budget. I mean, you do that no matter what here.
Yeah, exactly. I do the same thing. Yeah. But then what I've never been scared to run the property once it's up and running, right? Because a good property, if you build it correctly, you shouldn't have to go and check on the properties, right? Unless something really hits the fan and you have systems in place. So, but are you walking the homes virtually with like a real estate agent? Are they FaceTiming you, or you're like, cool, I'll take it, I don't care?
Yeah. So they send me a video and I walk them through it. I always get an inspection. Even when I bought an off-market direct to seller, I still get an inspection and I still pay contractors to walk it. And already getting those 2 points, I mean, you're going to do it in this and that. And like, if I walked a property, I still wouldn't know. So it really doesn't matter. It takes up more time. There's travel costs, all that stuff.
Yep.
Versus paying someone and then having the contingency whoopsies to fix it. And I already built it in. So I already know there's going to be a whoopsies. And then in terms of, there's another part to your question there.
I just did too. The virtual tour.
Yep. Yeah. So send me a video. And from the most part, from the video, I can get a good sense of if I like the property or not, and the area. And if the numbers are good enough, even on my back of the napkin scratch, then I move forward the next step. I mean, 9 times out of 10, you're trying to find something that is, at least for me at the time, was Yeah, I bought the first one pretty much rent ready. I had a couple $1,000s in miscellaneous fixer upper expenses, but for the most part, actually, a few of the last ones have all been 100% full burrs.
Wow, cool.
So, like to give you an example of the numbers of one that I bought one for $75,000. The previous tenants were actually forcefully evicted by SWAT.
Wow.
With tear gassed. It was a drug house. I bought that for 75 grand, put in 35 to rehab,
Wow.
and then it appraised for 180.
Dude, that's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
see, God, that's cool. That there's so many different levels of this real estate game that's just in every level of it is so amazing. The opportunity is crazy. It's cool to hear your side.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a sexy, Instagram post by any means, because the house still is a 1900 house.
Wow, that's
And it's
insane.
not like I decked it out. I just made it a safe place to
Yeah.
live, right? So it's got your gray paint, your LVP, call it a day.
Do you
But
feel like that's a good point? Do you feel like that makes it a little bit easier because you don't have to like make everything quote unquote perfect? Like it's got to be safe. It's got to be a good spot. It's got to look good, but you don't have to have every single detail like really dialed in. Does that make you feel a little bit more confident? Like, okay, we can do this from out of state. Does that make
yes,
sense?
it does. It does. And I mean, the driving factors are different,
Yeah.
right? So if you're looking at a long-term rental, the thing that you're thinking about first and foremost is safety.
Yep.
Right. And so you want safety, but then you're also thinking about like what are the actual long-term population drivers?
Yep.
And can that economy support those drivers? And then yes, when you think about the finish level, especially if it's just your workforce housing, it does make it easier because everything is more accessible. The amenities, the finishes, the appliances, you don't have to get top of the line because they're probably gonna get trashed.
Yep.
So yeah, you don't have to be nitpicky at all. It's just a lot of times you work with a good contractor, you just say, I want your renter, like what is your renter level finish? And I don't care what it is. Like if it has to be a different door handle or if it has to be a different, shower fixture.
Yeah, I see that. Okay. Yeah, I see that.
So I never have really picked out finishes at all for any of my rehabs.
That's amazing. Because that part gets so stressful sometimes,
Yeah.
especially right now, trying to order items is taking months, or you can't get it.
Yeah. So it's different. But
Yeah.
furnishing a short-term rental remotely has proven to be a different beast.
Okay, that's what I was just about to ask you.
So long-term rental for one thing. Short-term rentals, you're still picking out. I mean, hopefully at this point, I'm sure that you have your standard kind of bed sheets and pillows and etc. But it's like the furniture pieces that are a little more nuanced, just depending on the property and your styling.
Yeah.
That one was, for example, in Columbus, when we did our midterm rental that was there, I actually connected with my previous hard money lender, which his girlfriend was a stager.
Oh, wow.
And so I reached out to her and said, hey, I'm building out a short-term rental unit. Can I buy some of your furniture? And that was one. So she had a whole bunch of, this was towards the end of the year. She wanted to refresh for the next year anyways. And she has already the team behind her to help her install everything.
Yeah, the install is one of the hardest parts for sure. Getting it there and organized and stuff showing up on time. Yeah. But there's so many amazing platforms for furnishing now, not to go too far down that but there's so many amazing platforms. And, if you're a good host and you have multiple properties, you can join part of these groups where you can get major discounts. And there's like these online, I just tried testing one of these online designers where it's so cheap and they like do a virtual tour of my house and drop the couch in. It's like, so I think with the new systems, buying out of state doesn't seem as scary anymore. I just like so intrigued by your story like that, man. That's cool.
Yeah, you always just keep in mind the luxury tax, and then you're 100% straightforward. You do have to have a stronger network, obviously, because you can't be the one to solve the problem.
Yeah.
So between my business partner and I, we try our best to always be networking, even out of state, with that relevant market investors, whether it be other out of state investors who are investing in that market and or just physical people there. Because it's like once you're able to tap into like an actual network and a click,
Yeah, totally.
they help you so much.
So much, man. To give you an example, so when I first bought my place in LA, it was in my backyard. But then when I moved back to Arizona, I was going to sell the place right away because I was like, how the heck am I going to do this out of state? I was so nervous, and it was already up and running. It was going. So I just offered my housekeepers. I ended up paying, told my housekeepers, like, look, I'll pay you 20% more than you've been quoting me every clean.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll give you a little bit more each month if you give me 5-star reviews. If anything breaks, I'll pay you extra to go over there and fix it and just keep an extra eye. And we did that for another year and a half, 2 years. And I didn't go to the property one time after that. And if I didn't have, like you're saying, my boots on the ground, my team, it would have been, I feel like for me, it would have been impossible. They were like life-saving. Yeah. And they were so excited because I was paying them like great money. But for me, it was worth every dollar because they were so loyal. They enjoyed it. They treated my house like it was their house.
So what's interesting about your story is that you went from you would be yourself running that emergency call, right? Yeah. I'm out of toilet paper, no paper towels, whatever it is, something's broken, right? You'd be the one to assess the situation and then go.
Yeah.
I, from the get-go, completely was just like, that was not an option.
Yeah.
One, because it's like 3,000 miles away. So what from the beginning, what do I need to put in place in order to solve those problems? And so as I was vetting out cleaners and handyman and everything like that, that was immediately part of the question is, I'm a remote owner. Do you have other remote owner clients? And if so, how does that system work? And then from there, we just tweak the process.
Yeah, that's amazing. I kind of learned it the opposite way, the hard way. Now, I won't.
You approach it remotely now, though? Because I'm sure you're not going to 7 properties at once. You can't.
Dude, I'll be the first to admit. I'll be the first to admit. I do not want to go to the property unless I want to at this point. I know that sounds like bad, or I just go and I check up here and there, but it's all about the systems now. I feel like Airbnb is supposed to be, freedom, right? The way I look at it, it gives me so much freedom. I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to work from my phone wherever I want, whenever I want. And to drive around to a bunch of properties and, check on toilet paper is like such a waste of time. So yeah, I did it the opposite. I now have I have a maintenance guy, I have an inspector that goes before every single clean, and then the cleaners, and then another inspector shows up after the clean. We put everything in Breezeway, all the photos, all the notes. So like, I really don't have to go to the properties unless, like I said, I want to double check. I want to do some content out of them or whatever the case is. But yeah, that's a good point. So I don't know why I'm scared to buy out of state. I have no idea why I'm scared.
Well, good. I'm excited for your random property in the middle of Michigan.
Good, sign me up. Yeah, I want a lake house somewhere for sure.
Good. Well, I want to dive into the nuances of a luxury Airbnb real quick, just for a couple minutes.
Cool.
So let's back onto your website. Let's talk about, and again, if you're still listening to it on the podcast and not on YouTube, this is if you're looking for a sign, this is your sign.
Yeah, you're gonna miss out.
Because God, this is one of the most beautiful pools, and I'm sorry that it's broken right now and that you're having to fix it. So when you're thinking about taking the jump to something like this, like what are the maybe 1 to 2 things that you really had to dial in before you took that dive?
Well, first and foremost, right, this was not like an easy property to buy. It's way up in the canyon. It's in a major fire zone. I mean, we just had a fire and burned the entire roof off not too long ago. And when we bought it, it was my brother and I, and it was bad, man. It was really bad. It was 1 bedroom with a curtain splitting the bathrooms. I mean, it took us like, no joke, a solid year to get it up to this standard. And
I
we did
believe
a
it.
bunch of tweaks and whatnot, but it's such a retreat. It has the best energy up there. It's like so peaceful. It's so relaxing. Every single detail in this home, we went overboard, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
knew that because we wanted those type of guests. We were going after our avatar guest of, 4 people, maybe it's their big one-time trip. We knew Malibu was a high luxury place anyways, and we
Mm-hmm.
couldn't cut corners. It really did have to be the best appliances, the greatest furniture, but not stuff that you can just find at like, you're I'm drawing a blank, like everything West Elm or whatever it
Yeah.
was, right? We were trying to find different items that told a story. Some of it, like the bed frames, are fully handmade and fully custom.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was fun, man. The whole process was super fun. But even on the luxury properties, things happen. Like
Mm-hmm.
we put in nice things. We've had a door lock completely bust out, and they couldn't get back into the house. And at that level, people freak out. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
"What do you mean the door's locked?" And you just got to act fast. And
Yeah.
but yeah, man, we just wanted to make it feel like a very over the top retreat where people can just really unwind and just have like this. I mean, the views, everything about it is just insane.
I mean, so and just having the numbers on this. So I guess, in its heyday before obviously the fires and the crack, like how much did you gross on that one? Gotta be crazy.
We go on and off on that one because we're constantly like updating, or we have people use it and whatever, right? But the minimum night when we first started was like 550 a night, which
Mm-hmm.
we thought was pretty good. We were still kind of like new in the system and building it out,
Yeah.
right? But really quickly, the calendar was filling up way too fast, and I was like, okay, this is not right. And so now our minimum is 3 nights, and it's $1,200 a night. And it honestly, it's fully worth it. Like
Yeah.
people love it. I think it. And then summertime, peak season. There's times that sometimes it will get up to like 18 to 2,500 a night. Obviously for 4th of July weekend and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this place does well. This place definitely does well.
All right. So the question I got to ask you is, it seems like you've kind of had a gamut, right? You've Airbnb parts. I mean, you've Airbnb parts of your house. You've done, I don't want to say like the middle of the road, but obviously you've done like the more approachable listings, and now you have your luxury listing. What are you buying next?
Well, right now I'm doing my first house hacking one right now. So I bought a place out in Scottsdale, Rio Verde area.
Okay.
It's a little bit off the beaten path. It's in the desert,
Mm-hmm.
but 2 reasons. I kind of needed a place to live full time. I was bouncing around everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I bought a main house, but then it has a detached casita, which I'd never done. And I thought, oh, man, is this going to be weird opening it up on Airbnb? And I just recently launched after a very painful remodel because trying to order supplies during this climate is not easy.
Yeah.
And it's been really cool, man. I've had it rented a handful of times. It's basically going to end up paying my mortgage on my main house. And then if I ever want to, I could leave and rent the entire compound because I have it set up pretty easy that I can switch it to a full-time rental and bounce around. So this is the first time I've ever done that. And it's been like such an awesome experience. So yeah, but I like to diversify a little bit because the market, like I have a property right now in the heart of Old Town. And when we first launched.
Well, that was your YouTube channel. I was loading that because I'm going to share that next.
Oh, I was like, that sounds familiar. I was like looking around. Yeah, I mean, it happens. I saw it in the question right here too. Like I have a property we launched at the worst time, which was just like 2 months ago in Old Town in Scottsdale. It's a beautiful home. We really designed it out, and it's ghost town. I'm not even getting inquiries. I'm not getting bookings. And there comes a point where I can't lower it anymore, or I'm just going to get trouble guests.
Yeah.
And you kind of just have to, you just kind of have to bite your lip and know that it's going to turn around. It's just a slow season, and kind of plan for it. But yeah, definitely diversifying your portfolio, I feel like is huge.
Got it. Well, let's shift gears a little bit now. One of the reasons why I think it was really fun to connect with you initially, one, not just because of your listings, but there are not that many real estate investors who are also active on social media. And so I like to say it's a rare breed, and just the constant grind of content creation. If anyone here is, on the stream right now, please like this video, please subscribe, because God, the amount of hours it takes to prepare some of these things is ungodly.
It really is, man. It's so fun, but it's so crazy, huh?
Okay, so, and again, this is just us networking, really, because we haven't really fully dived into this. So why did you start your channel, and how has it impacted your business?
Okay, so man, it's hard to answer this not short. So social media, everybody knows how important it is, right? But people do get so caught up in the followers and the likes and all this stuff. I do it all the time too. I constantly look. I just started my YouTube channel, and like every day I'm like, am I at 1,000 yet? Oh man, I'm not at 1,000 yet. I'm such a failure. I need to get to 1,000. Like, it's been a goal of mine.
Help John get to 1,000. 250
Yeah.
away.
Come on, everybody, let's go. But I think with social media, it's such a double-edged sword nowadays, right? Because I truly do feel that if you don't have some kind of presence on there, you're just cutting yourself short. And you don't have to be like, actually, I highly recommend you don't be like everyone else, right? But having some kind of platform and just being yourself, don't worry about all the other stuff. It will come. Just have fun with it. These things right here are your best friend. The cameras on the iPhones are insane. And just having some kind of presence, creating a brand, I think is so important when it comes to Airbnb.
Yeah.
I don't think too many guests are going to post all the time and tag you, but they'll find you. I've had so many guests find me on Instagram, and then they see my house or whatever. So I don't even know how I'm answering this question really, but yeah, I definitely think it's extremely important, but it's a hustle, man. Once you start getting into it and you start like feeding the beast, it just never stops, because you have to just do it all the time to make it relevant. And but it's so fun at the same time.
You found guests from Airbnb. I mean, from posting on social. Are there any other crazy, like, for example, I'll give you, one example from me is that, I'm pretty active on almost all the channels.
Yep.
And I try my best as well to actually engage with people as well, and try and build relationships through Instagram DMs. And so one of the investors in Columbus that I'm just, through social media, I'm DMing, he gave me my last bird deal. And so
wow, that's awesome.
He sent it over to me. He said, "Hey, I got a house for 90 grand. Do you want it?" Wow. I said, "I'll take it for, 95, he said. And he sent me pictures. I said, "I'll take it for 90. Gave it to me for 90.
There you go.
And that's, and so I got my last deal from that, put in 35 to rehab. That just appraised yesterday for 180.
Wow.
See, that's the deal through Instagram.
And that's the power of it. You and I have been connected on Instagram. To me, like, the never-ending battle of learning all the time in this space, because it's evolving and changing so fast. There's always new stuff. I love reaching out to new people, new creators, new short-term renter people, designers. And I think I reached out to you and DM'd you or something like that. And I said, "Hey man, I saw your channel. I saw what you're doing." That would have been impossible for me to reach out if I didn't have some kind of presence on Airbnb or on social media. Sorry. And it's opened up the doors for me huge to be able to have conversations like this and learn a bunch. And yeah, I would definitely jump in and take advantage of it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that point. Like, to think about before the internet, like if you ever wanted to reach out to another investor, it's not even a big shot, but just someone else who's one step ahead of you. Like, how could you do that? Would you just show up on their doorstep and be like, hey, I got a question for you? Now, I mean, yes, before social, there's email, right? But most of the times you're probably in the spam box.
Yep.
And with social media, you can actually end up in their DMs. And most of the times it's them checking it. It's not their assistant, it's not their scheduler. Like, they still read their DMs. And so you have a chance to reach out. Not saying that you get a reply, but at least you get to shoot your shot.
Totally. And I think if you're coming from a good space, like I get DMs all the time. Sometimes I look at them or I look at all of them, but sometimes I reply, sometimes I don't. I think if it's coming from a real place and you're really reaching out, and people have to understand the respect of, this is my job. You can't just blow people up with a million questions. Like, as long as you know the boundaries, people are going to reply and be more than willing to like guide you in the right direction. I've reached out to so many people that I have so much respect for, and then they'll DM me. I'm like, and to this day, I'm like, no way, they DM me back. This is so crazy. And they're like, oh, here, go to this link, hit me up. Let's set this. This is what I use, blah, blah, blah. So definitely, man, get your hustle on that. I mean, LinkedIn, Instagram, like those things, you can just connect with people.
Yeah. The last tip I'll give to the audience is, if you are reaching out on any social media platform, the worst question to ask is, hey, can I pick your brains? Can I take your coffee? Like, that gives me no context. But the ones that will give you a higher likelihood of getting a response is a very specific question. Yeah. So if you have a specific problem, a specific question that we can answer back in a sense or two, like I've done that to myself, to other investors. For example, there was one that I wanted to figure out, okay, I have a private money lender, but they only have cash, and that cash has never been deposited anywhere.
Wow.
And I was like, and they're like, could you use this money? And in my head, I was like, man, I have never had a private money lender say, this cash may or may not be accounted for. What do I do?
Yeah.
So another investor I saw on Instagram, who does a lot of private money deals, all of a sudden posted a stack of cash in his hands. And so I sent him a video Instagram message, just a DM of, hey, I got a private money lender who wants to get $50K in cash. How can I do this? Never talked to him before. He gave me a response.
So,
but that's because it was a specific, actionable question that was relatable to what he was. And obviously I was already engaging with his content too, but he could answer that in 30 seconds.
Totally. You set it up for him to want to, right?
Yeah.
Because he's talking about that subject. He knows that if he replies, you're going to be, in lack of better words, like more of a supporter, super fan, right? You're talking about it now. So yeah, man, that's a rad story. That's crazy.
But you got to shoot your shot, but you also got to do it in a way to where you also come out with respecting their time.
Yeah, totally.
So
I mean, every now and then you get the one person that will DM you every single day with another question. You're like, okay.
It gets hard, but I know that most people that I know in the investing community generally do want to help people out.
Totally.
And so I don't know. I guess what's the last question I have for you, John, is like, what's the ultimate goal with social? What do you want to get out of it?
Well, like I said, I just recently started YouTube. Instagram's always been my go-to. My background was photography, so the platform was photography. It was so fun. And it's been really, really fun starting the YouTube. I started the YouTube because of being an Airbnb ambassador. I was just getting the same questions so many times that it was repetitive and hard to keep up. So that's why I started YouTube, so I can answer more questions more frequently. I never in a million years thought I would promote it. Never thought I would tell anybody about it. I thought I would just use it just as a tool to share it with. But now I got the bug. I love it. It's so much fun trying to come up with content. I meet amazing people like you guys, and just like it. I'll tell you, I want to get to 1,000K.
Yeah.
There's just something about the 1,000 that's just like a major goal. And I'm just really enjoying building the content on YouTube right now, man. It's been really fun. It's such a learning process.
For sure. If you're watching this live, please make sure you go onto his page here. Hild Homes is his page. If you're watching this on the post play, I will link this down below as well. But no, I mean, social for me has just opened up the world.
Yeah.
Obviously, with just being able to connect to people, for them to see your story, and it also increases the likelihood that they'll connect to you back, just because they can see who you are, and you're not some, I don't know what this guy really wants.
Yeah. True.
So,
True.
I mean, people have watched, it's weird to say, but like hours of me, and so it's like they already know me.
Yeah, it's a trip, man. Social is a trip. I mean, yeah, not to go too that far to the rabbit hole, but like I've been around that business as like reality shows and help produce shows, and like it's kind of like this like weird space when you start putting yourself out there more. The amount of connections and reward you get from it when you help somebody, and then they reach out to you and they're like, dude, I'm a super host now. Thank you so much. Like, I watched 2 of your videos. I launched my property. I got 8 bookings right away. And you're like, oh my God, that is worth every pain, suffering, trying to figure out how to make this video perfect.
Yes.
So like, I'm like, thank you for writing a comment and telling me this, because now I cannot wait to make the next video.
That is, if John, if anyone here knows John, or if anyone knows me, which I hope, I guess if you're watching my channel, you do. If any of it has been helpful at all, please put it in a comment. Please DM us, because that is complete fuel to the fire.
Totally.
Like, we're not asking for money when we respond or anything like that, or even to, you know, make some of these videos, but just to know that we've helped one extra person is just like, I love seeing those messages.
True, man, because trying to come up, I shouldn't even say trying to come up, like there's a million ideas, but sometimes you just get in your head. You're like, oh man, should I put this out? Is it working? And then, like you said, you get that comment. Like I got one the other day and it just lit my fire. I was like, no way, man. Wow. Okay, cool. That person is not going to make a bunch of mistakes like I did. All right. I got to pull it together. I got to make this next video.
Yeah.
Good point.
Well, John, I appreciate our time today. Real quick for the audience, what things are you looking for right now? How can someone add value to you?
Dang, that's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, man, you just threw me off of that. That's a good question. How could people? I mean, shamelessly, you can go follow me on social media. You can write me a comment. I love to see it. You guys can tell. I love hearing stories. If you guys want to tell me like where your journey is and where you're struggling in the real estate space, like, yeah, I just love it all, man. I love hearing it. I love hearing people's stories and journeys. And honestly, I love connecting. I'm touring a lot more Airbnbs. So if you have a beautiful place, I've been doing a lot more of these tours. Yeah, just reach out. I'm happy to connect, man.
I love it. Well, John, I appreciate the time today. For anyone who's watching this, again, make sure to go follow John on all of his socials. I'll have those all linked down below. If you did enjoy this video, please give it, you gotta do the YouTube thing, right? Please give it a like. Please share it with someone, especially a guy like his properties are super shareable. So if you're not sharing this video, I don't know, like what is wrong with you, right? And then subscribe down below. But John, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we'll definitely have you back.
Dude, honored, man. It's so awesome talking with you. Have a good one, everybody. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.